I'd like to introduce our panelists. Shiri Fein Grossman, a member of Forum Devora, Women in Foreign Policy and National Security, was the head of the Foreign Policy Branch for Regional Affairs in Israel's National Security Council. Shiri was the first person to hold the position of the Gender Equality Advisor to the Israeli National Security Advisor, a position she held for 6 years, during which she helped promote women to senior positions in the NSC and Israeli national security ecosystem. Shiri now works for the private sector, where she creates bridges between the Israeli tech ecosystem and the Abraham Accords countries. Dr. Dina Ben-Yehuda is head of Hadassah Medical Organization's Department of Hematology and has been named Dean of the Hadassah Hebrew University Faculty of Medicine, the first woman to hold that position. A graduate of Ben-Gurion University Medical School, Dina interned at Hadassah Hospital and conducted basic research at Hebrew University's Lautenberg Center for Cancer Research and Immunology. Viktoria Kanar is co-founder of Refresh Global. As a fashion producer and entrepreneur, Viktoria brings together key experts and innovators from around the world to develop new initiatives that will have a long-term impact on how we recycle textiles, converting textile waste into new raw materials. Hello to all my panelists, and thank you for joining us here today. I'd like to begin by asking each of you to just tell us where you're coming to us from and how you're doing, given everything that has gone on in Israel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having this symposium, especially at this difficult time. I'm currently based in Tel Aviv. I was born in Israel. My parents were born in Israel, and my grandparents came to Israel as Zionists even before the Holocaust. So I have, Zionist blood in my veins, and it's Zionist by birth, as I call it. And we are in a difficult time, and we will come together and we'll overcome, and with your support as well, which is essential these days. I've been in the National Security Council for 11 years, and in the last couple of years, I've really been trying to, build bridges, as you said, with people in the UAE, with Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Morocco. And I really believe this regional cooperation is our future here.
Dr. Dina?
I live in a settlement near Jerusalem. I'm in a very bad shape as for this war. The son of my husband's brother was killed in the first day, 21 years soldier. My daughter Or is a battalion commander in the south, and she's in the war, as well as two of my sons-in-law. So it's now 17 nights without sleeping, and most of the time crying.
Sorry to hear that. Viktoria,
And just to tell you, I was born in Haifa, but I'm a second generation of a Holocaust survivor. And I am also graduated the Yom Kippur War. So not only what's happening now, it's also all kind of memories that are coming up during these horrible days.
So sorry to hear that. Viktoria, where are you coming to us from?
I was born in Moscow, and I grew up in Germany, actually, in Berlin. And I made Aliyah on my own. Before I went in the private sector, I was active in Jewish organizations. My last public position was the chairwoman of the World Union of Jewish Students. This is what was also my first position in Israel. And my two kids were born at Hadassah and Kerem in Jerusalem, in Yerushalayim. The war struck us in Tel Aviv, and I was supposed to go on a business trip to Berlin, but I couldn't leave on my own, so I took my kids with me, and I'm in Berlin at the moment.
So it's really inspiring to be on here with the three of you who have had just such amazing journeys of your own. So I would love if we could get started by each of you telling us a little bit about your journey to becoming a trailblazer, and specifically how your Zionism has impacted that trajectory. Shiri, do you want to start with you again?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I've been in the security apparatus ecosystem for a long time. And I was always usually the only woman in the room, or one of the few women, and possibly the youngest one. And I think I my entire career I was in Israel, surrounded by Zionists, so it's a little bit different, and especially being in the Israeli government for so long. But yeah, sorry, move on. I'll catch my thought a little bit later.
Dr. Dina, what about you? How did you end up there at Hadassah, just being so high up in the Hadassah organization and just such an integral part of everything that happens there?
I worked very hard.
Of course.
I mean, I think that it all begins in the way that I was grown up with one parent who was one of the heroes of the 48 war in Israel, my father, and with my mother, who was, as I said, a Holocaust survivor. And I think that there was always one thing that I knew for sure, that I love this country, and that I was very much till today I'm thinking about how can we do things better here. So in the army I was an officer in Sinai, and as I said, I participated in the 73 war, and I was the second woman to get a declaration from the chief of staff. My daughter got it too, so it's go in our family. And then I went to study medicine in Ben-Gurion, because after the 73 war, I was part of a movement which was called Peace Now. And I was very active in the south of the country. And then I went to Hadassah. I thought that I'll be a surgeon, but I went back to another dream that I had as a child, because my brother died from lymphoma when I was 3 years old. That was the time that I decided to be a physician, and I was dreaming to invent a new treatment for lymphoma, and I'm doing it right now. We have a new drug that we are going to start a clinical trial on. And then when I was asked to be the dean of the medical school, I thought that it's a good time to educate the new generation of physicians into the era of digital medicine, AI, and so forth, so they will not forget humanity. And then, so I was the first woman as head of hematology, the first woman as dean after 23 men. And then I was asked to be the chair of the Health Basket Committee of Israel. So I'm again the first woman to do so. And that's it.
It's amazing, Dr. Dina. Our thoughts are with you right now. I can't imagine what you're going through with your family, and also what you're doing at work is just so inspiring to all of us. Viktoria, tell us a little bit about your journey, your trajectory.
So I was growing up in Berlin. I was many times the only Jew in the class, in the school. And that was after I had actually already received some Zionist education, funnily enough, from a school in Moscow that was run by Chabad emissaries, because back then it was the late 80s and people were leaving and they just had to help them kind of get prepared for Aliyah mostly. But my family decided differently. So I ended up coming to Berlin, which was a big, it was a big tragedy for me, actually, to be very honest, because I didn't know what to do. I was so, my head was really in a different place. I had started learning Hebrew. And it was really difficult also. Berlin was a city that had to identify itself from the beginning. It was a reunited city. It had so many problems, and the Russian Jews were just one of the many. And so the only refuge I could find was really in the Jewish community, where there would be people who would be similar to me, who would understand where I'm coming from and what I need. I visited Israel for the first time. There was a bat bar mitzvah trip at the end of in 91, just before the Gulf War. And I tried to come back ever since, as much as I could. And I wanted to make Aliyah, any minute, as quickly as I only could. I had a deal with my father. I was worried that he would let me go by myself, even though my whole family actually did immigrate from Ukraine and Russia to Israel, that I would finish my first degree and then I could go afterwards. He was hoping that I would, meet some nice Jewish boy in Germany, not so easy, by the way, and just get a great job and just stay. But he didn't know me, I guess, well enough. So the moment I got my degree, I was off. And but during that time, as a student activist, I had become a Jewish student activist in Berlin. What also happened was the second Intifada. It broke out, and we had to scrap all our plans to help create, Jewish activities and kind of, do all these cultural events that we were planning. We understood that what we have to do is to start doing Israel advocacy, not only because we felt that we had to explain Israel stories better, but also because we had students that were calling us from different universities around Germany saying, people come to us and we're being addressed at during school, and we don't know what to say. We don't know what to do. We're being attacked. And so we understood that we have to very, very quickly begin equipping them with information, with also some kind of a self-trust that we are on the right side and we have to tell the story. You can only imagine, looking at where we're right now, how difficult it was, and yet what's happening right now even seems to be, I assume we'll be talking about it later, it still seems like almost like a children's game to what I feel what's happening now. And then I did make Aliyah, and like I said, I was at Woodges, and I really got to meet and be at the most amazing and incredible places. I represented the Jewish students at Auschwitz at I think it was the 70th commemoration of Auschwitz, and got to meet world leaders. And I wanted to become a diplomat actually for Israel, but I was told that it could be very difficult for an idealistic person like me if she had to follow certain government decisions or government policies that she doesn't believe in. And this is why I decided to go into private sector and represent Israel through everything that was happening in the private sector, Startup Nation. I had a PR agency, and I became a fashion producer completely by accident. And I ended up working with the ministries. I was working with the foreign ministry for a long time and the tourism ministry. And it took me to work with embassies around the world, from Vietnam to New York and Macedonia and many other places. And I was able to represent the face of Israel. I don't know how many, well, maybe some of the listeners here do know a bit about the fashion scene in Israel. It's a really beautiful scene because it's very diverse. You have really representatives from every society in Israel: Muslims, Jews, religious, secular, everything. And it was such a beautiful story to tell, because each time we would go to a new country to do an event, we would also make so many new friends, which normally, if only they knew anything about Israel, would of course be, the news that we don't want them to know, or not to know, that the ones that we don't think are right. And we would always leave behind these friends who had met us physically and saw that, who the Israelis are that we think are the majority in Israel. And that has been my story. And then the last thing that I had, my career took me to, was actually the next step, which I felt kind of sort of going back to the roots, the activism part. And this is why today I'm working in the sustainability business, the Tikkun Olam, where we're basically working on fixing what the fashion industry has left behind, which is another way for me to tell Israel's story for the inventions that we have done from Israel.
You three women are such an inspiration, but I'd love to know, who were your role models? Dr. Dina.
So, Dina, yeah.
No, your turn.
Okay, Shiri, you go.
Okay, so I think I mean, I, like a lot of people, especially these days, love Golda Meir, and she's a great inspiration. But my role model is my mother. She's been a lawyer for 50 years. She started law school right after high school, during her time at the IDF. And in spite of her, the dean of the law school saying that she shouldn't be in the army, she should be at school. And she started off in the government, in the Attorney General office, and back then the treatment for women was not as it is today, although with we have our share, but and now she really hated the way women were treated, and it really bothered her, and she couldn't handle it, so she quit. And she always told us that story. And she was independent. She's doing very well right now. But that always struck me as something that I have to fix. I have to be there for other women. And that's why I did the 6 years as the person in charge of gender equality, but also of preventing sexual harassment. And that really, and now I'm very active with Forum Dvora, which promotes women and gender equality in national security. I'm a regular unfortunately this week I'm a regular on TV shows on talking about the war and what's going on and what should be our strategy. But it all starts back home, with my parents and my mom having high morals, high ethics, especially work ethics, and working hard, striving for excellence, and doing what's right and be there for other people. And yeah, that's my role model.
And doing it all. Amazing. Dr. Dina, how about you?
I will be very original. My mother. My mother, who was in the Holocaust when she was 14 years old. She was saved by a Christian nun that later on was the wife of her brother. She became Jewish. And after she got married to my father, their firstborn died from lymphoma, as I said before. And She had like 2-3 years that she was in a very bad shape emotionally, and then she decided to study nursing. And she was 40 years old when she went to nursing school with 18 years old girls, because at that time only girls studied nursing. And she was she got the Dean Prize for Excellency in the nursing school. And when once I came home and I said, I'm the only girl in the class that so-and-so, she said, never say it. You are so-and-so because you are so-and-so and not because you are a girl. And that's something that goes with me all the time. And I'm very happy to say that I have 3 girls. And they learned it from me as well. Whatever we are achieving, it's because we worked hard and we are the best, and not because we are women.
I love that.
And
Viktoria,
when I hear my 2 panelists, I know that they feel and they're doing the same. Somehow I have this feeling.
yes, they are. Victoria, how about you?
So I'm quite different from the rest of my family. I'm that very exotic kind of type of bird, being the activist. The reason being, though, is because in the Soviet Union, activism could cost you your life. And that was something that, and not only that, on the other hand, no one in my family ever wanted to be an activist because that would mean to be part of the regime. However, no one in my family ever denied their Judaism. And it was a very strong feeling that I grew up with. Ever since I was a child, I knew where it was coming from. And it was a very, very strong thing in my family, even though everybody is secular. And but it was something much stronger than that. So that was something that I guess, even if they ask themselves, how come I'm part of this family, but this is something that they have definitely inspired me for. And if I were to choose one person, though, when I was a youth counselor in the Jewish community, we had the different groups had names, and the name of our group was Hadassah. And as someone who grew up in Europe, and even these times, but I guess always reading her story and trying to understand how someone possibly could have the courage and the heroism that she has is something that is beyond any of our understanding. Yet here she was, and yeah, she's definitely an inspiration.
Amazing. Speaking of these difficult times, I guess I want to ask you, has your Zionism ever come into conflict with your work?
It hasn't been into conflict, but especially these days, I have Emirati colleagues, and Bahrainis and Moroccans, and you would imagine they would not support us at these times, but I've gotten so many messages from all over the region supporting us and being there with us, and I even have a Palestinian colleague that I work with that called me right in the days after, I think that was October 8th or 9th. He sits in Dubai. His parents are from his father is originally from Jerusalem. And he called me to say how shocked and outraged he was, and what Hamas is doing is actually, is gonna bring a lot of death and suffering. And I, of course, agreed, and it was genuine. And months before we had all sorts of arguments, but we both kind of feel similar, and there's more similarity than differences. So yeah, it's definitely something I don't feel it's ever been a hindrance. I've always been super proud. Every international conference I've attended, I've always, protected my country and believed in it, even if I don't necessarily agree with everything my government is doing. I know that I understand why we're here, and I love this place, and I will stay here forever.
I'd like to also add a little bit, are you, for our other two panelists, are you more Zionist now, or do you show it differently just in the past few weeks? Viktoria?
So when I decided to go into the private sector, and I was working with Israeli startups, and this was a couple of years after the second Intifada, but I think the magnitude of what had happened and the strength of BDS had become so big that I would see that so many Israeli companies would not put anywhere on their websites that they were from Israel. And that was breaking my heart, really, that we had to be in that position, because obviously in no other countries would that even be an issue. But my job was to do PR for them, and I, one way or another, it would come out, and there was all of a sudden there was a positive effect, because if it was an amazing startup which invented something really great in medicine or other technologies, then it was interesting how journalists from almost the same publications all of a sudden were totally fine with it, because they felt it was a great story. And slowly but surely things started easing up, and I was seeing, I feel like, especially today, I guess this is a different situation. There's nobody, or maybe people just understood, even in Israel itself, that it doesn't matter if you say or not where you're from. This is where we are, this is who we are, and it's not going to help us to try and hide it, right? So we might as well embrace it. And so for me personally, as I was telling, I guess maybe there was some kind of a subconscious reaction even to that experience, that I just decided, when I became a fashion producer and was organizing Israeli fashion festivals around the world, that was what, there was no way to hide it. So that was my answer.
I never thought about the fact that I'm Zionist. It's in my blood. The only time that I felt like emphasizing it was when we were in New York for 2 years of fellowship. I'm in Memorial Sloan Kettering, and my husband in Cornell. This was the only time that all of a sudden I was conscious that I'm a Zionist, but all the rest of the time not. We are facing now another problem. I have many patients from Gaza, and I'm so happy for the Hippocrates oath that leaves me without any doubts that I have to treat everyone. But it's not easy. It's not easy. I think that because my relationship with the Palestinians is a patient-physician relationship, or physician-physician, because many of the Palestinian hematologists trained in my department, including one from Gaza Strip. So I had like illusion that something good is happening, and the disappointment of looking at this unbelievable evil against us makes me very, very, very angry. And it's not good to be an angry physician.
Shiri, I know you're working with a lot of the countries, you mentioned the Abraham Accords. How have your interactions with your international contacts been impacted by the events of October 7th?
It's complicated. I think they support us, but it's hard to say that publicly. And obviously, they care about Palestinians in Gaza being affected as well. But I think the fact that I wish that they would take a harsher stand against Hamas, at least some of them. But I encourage them to. But I think overall we're getting a lot of support, especially from Moroccan. I have so many people reached out saying they completely understand. There's not a lot of people know there's almost, I think, 1 million Israelis that are originally or descendants of Moroccan Jews. So they feel as if they were, they were targeted as well. And so it's not like you see in the news. Things are much more complicated, and we're getting a lot of support. And I just hope we find a way with them to fight this evil together. I think they're as scared as we are. It's right near their borders. It's something that could, they look at and say, oh, if this could happen to Israel with its big army and its technology and 75 years of fighting, and this could happen to them, then we have to be careful, and we have to see what can we do. Yeah, so that's pretty much where we are.
So speaking of what can we do, how do we come together and move forward in this moment from your particular vantage points? Viktoria?
Yeah, so maybe also just a bit to add to the previous question, because I'm also out there now. I came to Berlin because I had speaking engagements, various speaking engagements in Berlin and in London. And I don't know if I would have left if I didn't have that, but I made a decision that, I should go and use the stage to tell the story. And I must say, so I don't know how much you seeing what's happening. There were some attacks in Berlin on even on a synagogue, and their neighborhoods where there are very scary things going on. Let's put it like this: anti-Israel demonstrations, and people are not just. There's a very big Israeli community in Berlin that might be also something that's known. It's very the times are very scary, difficult, complex. For the first time, I have conversations with Germans that are truly warming my heart. I gave a talk yesterday to 60 Germans, which are part of the German-Israeli Society. They had 115 new members in Berlin alone since the war started. But these are people that are talking to me mostly one-on-one, right? And overall, there's so much confusion, and then the question is which we keep talking about the question of the simple math, right? Can we actually just logistically be able to bring our voice out there so that we could be heard? And this is why I'm so convinced that we cannot do it alone, and we should not do it alone as Jews. We must do everything that we can to get people on our side. And by the way, what I've been saying since the 7th of October, that we need to explain to people that there are no more sides, right? There are so many people trying to say, let's see the both sides. There are no more sides. If you want to have two sides, then the one side are all people that want to live in democracy, humanity, who want to live as they are, no matter who they are, Palestinian, Jew, Arab, it really doesn't matter. It's anybody who wants to live in a free world. And the other side are all those that want to destroy anybody who wants to live differently from what they are, right? And I think that this is such a simple message. It's not political, it's purely human. And yes, everybody understands that there are complexities, but we don't need to talk about it, because if we constantly go do the yes, but, right, and what about, then we will never come out of this. We need to be so strong, and we need to be united, of course. And I think what has been happening in Israel and with the connection with the world Jewry has been had such a tremendous difficult impact on us too, right? We were weak, and I had people around me talking about it. Look, we're so weak right now. This is the best time to attack us. And I hated, these voices. And I said, stop, I don't want to listen to you. You're a pessimist and so on. But here we are. So if we are, I know I was speaking about the world, but I'm kind of want to go back to us, right? What is everybody doing now, right? Yesterday. And I feel that the most important thing is really, whatever you do, don't continue with business as usual. You don't have to be, don't get, carried away with just being scared. Try to do something, even if it's a little thing. And if it's a little conversation with your neighbor, which by the way, your non-Jewish neighbor, which by the way, doesn't necessarily they're not an anti-Semite or an anti-Zionist. They might just don't know, and they might just need a little help to explain and listen to you from the most human perspective.
Shiri?
I really want to resonate that. I think we tremendously need your support here. We need you to stay connected. We need you to reach out to people. We're not going to convince the people who really hate us or are really ignorant or anti-Semitic, but there's like 80%, 70% of people who just don't know, who just don't care, who just don't understand, and reach out. And not just on Instagram, just be, this is the time to be together, to create human connections, to be a community, to sit together, to say, I understand. I have friends, I have family in the US. I know people are as scared as we are, and there are rising threats. So I think we need to stand together and to see how we fight it together. We're not even talking about the economy of Israel and what it's going to go through in the next decade as a result of what we're experiencing. I think I've been saying this is going to be a long war. It's not going to be just a month or two. If we're really going to come out of it something different, it's going to take a long time. And we need to rebuild our country, to rebuild our political system, to rebuild our army, to rebuild how do we do defense, how do we do everything, how do we live here. It needs to change. We need ideas, we need capital, we need friendships, and the US is the number one supporter, but we have other allies as well, and we have new partners, and like I said before, so thank you so much for all the support, and please continue to do so.
I just want to say that when I heard Biden talking in Israel, I wrote letters to all my friends in Hadassah, in America, and in the UG friends, the Hebrew University friends, and I told them that when I heard him, I felt that this is the years and years of work of Jewish people in the States that convinced the government how important Israel is. Because I think that when it comes from within, it's super important. And I hope that you will go on doing it, because the fact that we have here American army nearby. I hope we'll never have to use it, but it gives so much confidence. And I think that it wouldn't have happened without the American Jews.
We have about 1 minute left and one final rapid fire question for each of you. What would you say to a young Zionist woman who wants to be a trailblazer like you? What short bit of advice do you have for them as they start their journey?
Believe you can.
I love that. Believe you can. Shiri, do you have one?
I just work hard and dare to go out there and take risks. It's very important.
Viktoria?
Be vocal, be loud, and be proud of who you're representing. This will give you a lot of strength.
I love that. Believe you can, take risks, be loud, and be proud. Those are things that we've all learned from the three of you. Thank you so much for being here with us and for starting off our two-day symposium on such an inspiring note. Shiri Fein Grossman, Dr. Dina Ben-Yehuda, Viktoria Kanar, we are thinking of all of you and your families, and we are so grateful for you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.